Another night, it feels like old times down in sequence. Starting off here with Saturn tonight because it's about to set. 7:30 Eastern, Central Florida. Gorgeous night, little cloudy, a little humid. We got the planetary alignment of Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter. Venus is already set, but we're going to see some really nice Jupiter tonight next up. And then the moon is looking lovely at 65–66%. So I'm pretty stoked. Got my drink, got my smoke, waiting for some people to shuffle in, talk about some Electric Universe stuff, and I'll keep it not too long tonight, maybe an hour and a half, because yesterday I got really tweaked in the neck, as they say. Just really tough right now, so I'm not going to overdo it tonight, but yeah, exactly, wrong number from space, you got it. I'll go back to this tune in a second. No, actually, this is Describe It To Me, right? Or maybe I named it different. Yeah, that's wrong number. Yeah, I think that was the other title. Hopping in the chat room, Red Rum, Me Gone Her, Astrolabium, Genghis Khan, Ellie Wynn. What's happening, peepsouls? Maxine Van Date. Date. Such a cool name. Is it Date or Dite? Or maybe something else. Astrolabium says, I got a nice Celestron, no monitor though or motor. Every tweak requires setting. Yeah, it's a ton of work, but it is what it is. You learn the hard way, and then when you invest in the nicer scope, you're kind of already a master at it. My hat says Electric Universe. Compliments from Alpha Vedic. Love it. All right, let's set some moods here. I'm going to stay on Saturn as long as I can before it gets too fuzzy and fringy, and then we're going to head up to Jupiter. I'm excited to see what's going on with Jupes. Keep this track going here, some electro stuff going. So yeah, just drew a little bit of this Birkeland filament coming through Saturn. So this is what I see when I look at Saturn, very simply. I mean, it is a highly complex organization of different filaments, right? So if I were to draw it, or if you were to see some sort of actual, maybe X-ray observatory level shot of this, it would be a little bit more like spaghetti, tons of like folded masses of spaghetti Birkeland filaments, right? So it's not perfect the way I draw it here, but I draw it just for simplicity. But you know the shape. You have essentially the apple, or hips, or butterfly, or shells. You have the pinch right at the center, which is the planet, vibrating, oscillating extremely rapidly, therefore the core of it is the densest. And then you have everything along this hypotrochoid or hourglass shape, but really it's a tube that's being pinched by the oscillation of Saturn. And then you have the ring, which appears as, you know, ice crystals mostly, but gas, dust, plasma. And this is created along the dielectric inertial plane that exists where seeds would exist in an apple, and where eyes would exist on a face, and so on and so forth. And then you have the side-by-side hexagons that we see on the moon. And we see in all nature the bridge of the eye, the jaw, arachnids, etc. and so forth, honeycomb, basalt flats, nested hexagons throughout nature. And at the same time, you have a hexagon at the top of Saturn. And what's going on with that is that you have at every corner, you have these points that also have nested hexagons. And essentially I think what's going on is that this hexagon is being pushed from here, 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 here. So everything around it is impinging upon what would be perfectly circular, but because there's density pushing against it, it creates these boundary layers, therefore creating natural hexagons. It's not, this is just my idea, but it makes sense as opposed to not having any clue as to how there's a hexagon on most planets. Hopping in the chat room. What's up, rainbows and butterflies? How do you do? Good to see you. And Lost Brooklyn, what's up, what's up? Jedi Princess, evening. Great to see you. And everybody else shuffling in tonight. Yeah, so a little bit of Saturn. Let's keep going with the tunes. Let me know if you have any thoughts about what I'm talking about, or tell me about your day. Saturn's actually starting to dim, so I'm going to also head over to Jupiter. Jupiter. I'm totally slurring tonight, huh? Still early. Okay, so zoomed up to Jupiter, realized like it's actually gotten a bit cloudy out there. That's what was dimming Saturn, but as well, want to just hop over to Jupiter anyway. Moons are looking really amazing tonight. Let's see where we're at. So I believe it is, try to get to today. Zoom out. Got Ganymede all the way at the top, then Europa, then Io, and then hanging out all by the lonesome Callisto, very far down there, but perfect alignment. I mean, they always are aligned, but this is one of those really pretty ones. So we'll see if tonight, if we watch for a couple hours, maybe Io will eventually go across Jupiter, and that would be interesting to see if we can get some shadow. But, and then I gotta check out and see where the moon is. The moon is looking really, really high up there tonight. So I might have to use the diagonal there. Want to hop in the chat, say what's up to everybody. Anybody else just join in? Hot Rod Scott, what's going on? Welcome. How was my day? Woke up and went to brunch with a friend, but I missed my alarm, so literally my friend was like, oh, I'm coming over, and I had to roll out of bed and immediately get ready and go, but managed to make it. It was very enjoyable, then and cleaned the house all day, and that was actually pretty cathartic, even though now I'm a bit wiped out, to be honest, because, you know, you just chill and you do laundry and you're running around, then if you sit for one moment, it's like, oh. But not going to complain because we got some astronomy to do. I'm pretty hyped on, I was listening to Electric Universe stuff all day, and there are so many things to talk about. It's really tough to kind of pick one, but I went back and started to listen to like the older videos, like Space News, and yeah, I see it in the comments under the Thunderbolts Project videos that people are a little bit like, what the heck is with this new presentation? The music is off, the pacing is off. There's something about it that's not exactly, it doesn't feel really Thunderbolts, with due respect to Gareth and Gareth Samuel from See the Pattern. I mean, he's really great in his presentations, but there's something very cold about it and removed in a way from the recent videos. At least for me, it just doesn't feel like it used to be. That being said, I went back and looked at like top 10 reasons why space is electric, and some of the older space news, and realized like, man, there's such an incredible amount of not only like theory to talk about, but also events that have transpired, that like things that happened before I started scoping, like some of the comets in the early aughts. And they were talking about how these electric comet comas, one of them linear, which was the other one, I forget, but had these comas that were larger than the moon and the sun. You could see them during the day. They were so bright, these electric comas from tiny comets. And essentially it's never talked about in the media, never discussed, there are no videos about like why it happened or how it happened or what these kind of shells of electrical plasma are. But yet there's perfect visual evidence for something like that. I just wonder, you know, sitting here doing this type of work, like sketching on top of let's sketch a little bit, right? Jupes always makes me smile. Me too. I love that. Ellie Wynn says, my day was strange, warm for a while, but seemed like ghost town vibe into hood. Yeah, I think it's like, well, can't say the same here. It was really bustling, but it felt like Christmas today. Christmas in Florida is always funny. But I enjoyed it. I can't complain, but I'm sorry it was strange, unless it wasn't strange in a bad way. Sometimes there are strange days, and it's all right. It's vibey. An Io transit? Yeah, we'll see. Maybe. It looks close enough, but I need to trace it in Stellarium and see if that's actually going to happen within our session tonight. Looks like it might. But anyway, shout outs to Thunderbolts Project for really enlightening us all. No pun intended. Or with all their amazing videos and thoughts and theories, and connecting us with our scientists like Halton and Emmanuel Velikovsky and Stephen Crothers and Pierre-Marie Robitaille, and and you got to give props to Suspicious Observers too. Ben Davidson was all over that years ago before anybody was thinking about it. Andy Cowley, what's happening? Good evening. GE to you. Right, I was going to sketch. Also, those banana nut muffins sound delicious. Delicieux. Alright, let me move this up a little bit. Bear with me, I'm going to take it kind of slow tonight because I am just in that zone. I'm trying not to stress out about too many things today. Alright, let's draw the same shape. Tell me when you get bored of this shape. No, I mean, tell me when you realize like how incredible it is to have the matrix, essentially the matrix site, the site that he sees the code into the universe. I mean, this is really what it is. You're able to see the invisible by understanding this inherent field geometry. And it's recursive at every level. I mean, recursive just means that it just happens at every level. It's almost like when you zoom into a fractal and it keeps moving through, yes, there's this idea that it's not the same fractal, but essentially it is the same fractal because it just has manifestations as it moves through time and space. But that's also really not the correct terminology. I'm trying to get away from that. But as it oscillates in potential ether and creates what we see as vector motion. But anyway, Birkeland filament through Jupiter's poles. That's why we have hexagonal poles at Jupiter, storms at Jupiter, color bands, counter rotation. We have the dielectric inertial plane where you have the orbital orbits of the moons. What else do we have? It's a tube, right? Tubes. And why are they tubes? Because what happens is because of the high energy of these Birkeland filaments, these twisted coaxial electrical filaments, it creates counter rotation or spiraling. From the center of the oscillator, the spiral emanates outwards. You see it as a Fibonacci spiral. Emanates outwards. Information in and information out. And then you have the squeeze of the bubbles. And as the bubbles squeeze, they create these boundary layers, and that's how you get those hexagonal craters, the bridge of the eye, honeycomb patterns, bubbles, molecules. I mean, it varies. The thickness of this tube that encases and protects the Birkeland filament is like your spine, protecting the spinal column. There's just a structure, inherent structure of field lines that actually creates these patterns. But it's not ex humana, like we are creating these patterns ourselves. Nature itself actually organizes this way, and we are nature. So we are observing our own shape via these shapes. All right, let me hide that for a moment. Check the chat. Hey Shaded, what's happening? I've seen the spiral in my head before. I'll never forget. Yeah, I mean, we are these spirals, and language is spirals, and art is spirals. They're inherent in all shapes at every size. So let's draw a little bit more. Forgive the squeaky chair. Okay, so Callisto also has the same magnetic field, but at a much smaller scale. And Jupiter has a magnetic field that is that large. What is this field? The field essentially says that along this line, it pulls in ether and resonates and spirals and creates denser ether than out here. The denser ether, or ether particles, or potential energy, or dark matter, or antimatter. Antimatter coalesces into matter along field lines. So these field lines are invisible, but they're essentially a communication line to send energy from Jupiter to Callisto. And Callisto itself has a much smaller magnetic field, and it probably has tiny planetoids that orbit it. Right? So you have recursive shapes. Not only do the planets orbit according to the field lines, they essentially resonate and oscillate along this dielectric inertial plane, which if you want to learn more about, you can check Ken Wheeler or Theoria Apophysis channel, Apophatic, and he can explain the dielectric inertial plane of resistance. But you can see this when every single thing in nature, from honeycomb to bubbles to the bridge of your eyes to butterfly to arachnids to you name it, this is the shape. It's the one shape. It's the one ring to rule them all. And from that, the poles, right, have spiraling. I want to say, what are these? Right? This is just oscillation because there's Birkeland filament going through and creating resonance, and this is oscillating. Ether is pushing in on it. As it pushes in on it, it creates little nodes, these interference nodes, and each of these nodes has its own magnetic field, its own twisted vortices and electric Birkeland filament. Fully interconnected universe. This answers everything, all at once. It answers the concept of God, consciousness, history, quantum mechanics, relativity, Newtonian mechanics, dielectricity, centripetal and centrifugal forces, gravitational lensing, everything, all at once. This one concept. Is that a bold statement? I think so, but I'm convinced that's the case. Let's see. Ellie Wynn says, it was strange. People come out when it's warm in the city, and on Sunday you have church people too, but the streets were erased of people. I don't know, when I was in New York and the days were like that, I felt really good. There was this kind of space to breathe and let the mind free in a city. But I can understand it also kind of being a bit creepy too, given that that's kind of the portrayal in media, where we're predisposed to think about empty cities being almost like a sign of something bad to come. Les Brooklyn says, mind blown. I love that. Tell me more. Let me know what you think. I really have been trying to articulate this so many different ways, and it also answers geology. You use the same shape, the same idea of oscillation in the region, outside dark matter, dark energy, antimatter, ether, you name it, pushing in on the oscillator. These wave patterns, or what are actually plasma layers, create. And it also it is concurrent with Ed Witten's M theory, which people tout as like the theory in quantum mechanics. Ed Witten talking about membranes that are these floaty slices of bread, of plasma bread that kind of tap each other. If you've ever seen the electric universe, You ever seen The Elegant Universe with Brian Greene way back in the day? Yeah, you'll see the M-brain theory. But let's say the M-brains are actually not just slices of bread, but they're these plasma spheres, or now three-dimensional hexoids, hexagons, because of these boundary layers that are created. So if you have circles next to each other, they'll create two-dimensional hexagons. If you have spheres packed together, they're going to create three-dimensional hexagons. And you see that with bubble packing. And so bubble packing is a visual representation of how these shapes occur in nature. I don't think there's really any need to talk about these. The complexity of the math to describe the points in space is very complicated, because you need a lot of math to describe all these different, like the spin on particles and the charge on particles, and taking into account forces. And there isn't really one unified way of looking at where things are in space. But however, I think starting from a point where we don't know, where scientists are constantly baffled by space's discoveries, or just have to use extremely complicated dimensional math and ad hoc theorems to come up with some sort of semblance of a theory that they can't explain to your average person because it's so convoluted. I think an idea that you can see this donut shape, and you can see the hourglass shape, and you can understand lightning bolts because we see them every day. We understand geology because we see it every day. We see our hands. If you look at the palm of your hand, you'll see these Lichtenberg figures, these patterns that resonate and oscillate as a mirror image of space formations. There's a reason we look, humans look the way they do. It's if you look up contemporary science, they're completely baffled by the idea of life. Consciousness is like the hard problem. So many people are working on it. They have no idea, or don't consider, that consciousness exists in a plasma layer outside the body. And if they do, they're purposely obfuscating it, which is lamer. Rumvorax, 'tis indeed, you have stumbled across that dope electric vibe tune dune chink moon channel. So what's happening, JG? How you doing? It says question ... Is it true Uranus is leaking toxic gas? Oh, I heard that it was, but depends on if you do it in public. If Uranus is doing it in public or in private, in the comfort of your own home. Let's see. Genghis Khan says, water spirals the wrong way out the sink, and her voice is a backwards record. It's like a whirlpool and it never ends. No, I've never read that, but I definitely... Is that a band or is that a book? They might be giants. Sounds like a book. All right. I think I've completely clouded out over here, so let me make sure it's not going to rain. Play a tune quick, and definitely want to check out the moon before we get clouded out here. Yeah, it got super cloudy all of a sudden. Like, I don't think it's gonna rain, but it's like white out almost. And the moon's really high up there, like, I don't know, 50 degrees at least. Hopping in here quickly. I see Fantasy Ecstasy joining. What's going on? Yep, clouds. JG says, nice channel, bro. Thank you. Welcome. Keeps Digging 7. Have I seen Leonard? I have not. It's been just like really tricky for me to set up where I'm supposed to. And then, yeah. I've been doing the planets and the moon over setting up for Leonard. So I think, like, I don't know, I've seen a lot of shots of it. It's great, but I think we're going to lose view by tomorrow. So unfortunately missed this one, but I'll try again. I feel like I've caught a lot of amazing things. So if I don't get Comet Leonard this time around, it's all right. JG, I actually thought that was a real question, and then I rolled with it, but all good. Uranus is a classic joke, but but indeed. Yeah, so let's stay with the moon. This is the wide shot. I actually might switch it to, this is the close-up shot. I might switch to wide so we can see a bit more of the moon. Keep the jams going for a little bit, and then let's talk about some of these hexagons. You can see Mare Crisium right there. Super easy to make out the hexagon. I know I'm a little bit raspy tonight. Forgive me. Nothing in my throat, just like been talking a lot lately. Sea of Serenity, Sea of Tranquility, Mare Nectaris, Mare Fecunditatis. We got the Apennines coming in. Eratosthenes at the end of that top left. Looking amazing tonight. I hope it clears up and we'll see some sick detail like we did last night. That should be nice. Be a good treat. All right, back in a few. had to wrangle with that a little bit, but alright, we got our moon. Got the super wide here, focal reducer plus the extender. And for Hot Rod, are you asking? Oh no, sorry, JG is asking what telescope. I'm using the Celestron Nexstar 8-inch right now. The kind of single fork mount, single arm fork mount. And 8-inch tube, the orange one. And yeah, it's the first scope that I got for TakeBackSpace 6 years ago now. Coming on 7 actually, it's crazy. Jedi Princess, enjoy your walk. Hot Rod Scott says, despite the chemtrails here today in Phoenix area evening, Luna looks great. That's great. It's been really strange with chemtrails the last few years. Like there are like now longer stretches of time where I don't see any, and there was a period of like intense chemtrailing years back, like 10 years ago. It was just like offensive, and now I rarely see it. It's crazy. And I never thought I'd really say that because, you know, it still exists, but just kind of like we lived in the twilight zone of chemtrails for a while. But whatever you thought it was, it definitely existed in terms of a visual event in the sky. So, Annette, One Love, what's happening? Welcome. Cool. Let's keep going with the music here. I feel like it's actually clearing a little bit. I got so much to see on the moon tonight. Never disappoints. Even with the clouds. Willpower coming in hot. Who's dancing?
You know I've been beaten from the heart. I know, no lie. I've been thinking about you all night. Why? No why. I've been waiting for your white light. No why. I've been thinking that you should be mine. So call me up, and let's get down, 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 down. So call me up, and let's get down, 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 down. Oh, you send me messages across the cosmic network, and you send me pictures from across the astral plane, and you send me cryptic kisses across the matching network. So call me up, and let's get down, 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 down. So call me up, and let's get down, 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 down. Je t'attends, mon amour, assez tuel, ainsi la même que la même sirène, agitant la éternelle, avec en son billet. Je suis la même que ton avant, l'année chaque jour. Je t'attends, mon amour, avec les mecs sans agrévé. Et c'est l'amour magnétique, c'est l'amour magnétique, c'est mon amour magnifique. Cool running. voices just leaving. I've been there, I see shit. Our oscillators the weirdest, nobody can hear it. Sometimes we just feel it, or they just staring beneath it. Our radio just low, flying up till the bubbles pop. That's a power now, that's a power now, that's a power now, that's a power now. Our radio just low, flying up till the bubbles pop. That's a power now, that's a power now, that's a power now, that's a power now. Hey, babe, what's up, dear? I've been missing a lonely face of you. Seems like thousands of years. Faces come and go through this circus we walk, head held tall into the rise and the fall. Over and over again, seasons of violation. I'm holding on so dear. Living in my creation is my rules. Rivers in my oasis. I wiped away my tears. I never once gave in to anyone else but this. Tell you you're the one that I think about. 55221 Common Hill. Do what you think about, you think about. I'll tell you what you're doing now. What you're doing, what you want. I know what you're doing, what you're doing, what you want. I know what you're doing, what you're doing, what you want. I know what you're doing to my heart. What you do, so she in when I tell what you do, what you do, what you do. I know what you do, what you do, so she in when I tell what you do, what you do. Seasons of violation. I'm holding on so dear. I'm living in my creation. It's my rules. Rivers in my oasis. I wiped away my tears. I never once gave in to anyone else but this.
All right, that was an oldie. Doing What You Want, The Seasons Annihilation. Long title, stupid title. Everything's stupid. No. Thanks for the kind comments, everybody. Let's see. JG, I dropped you that link so you can see some of the best of clips. Those are like most of them. There are other ones for sure, but yeah, that covers the kind of weird stuff. But yeah, I've been so lucky in the last 6 years to capture some of those things, and especially like the satellite crossing Saturn, or meteor, or whatever that is, crossing Saturn is like just absolutely insane to get that kind of alignment. Super rare. Yeah, Red Rum is talking about that time I caught that satellite near Jupiter. That's in one of those, in the clips as well. So, yeah, and Secure Team featured that. What an epic time. It was such a weird, well, I don't say weird, it was really a fun, like, exciting early few years in astronomy, like streaming astronomy. But I hesitate to say, ooh, nostalgia goggles, because doing it right now, 12/12/2021, back at it, show number 700 and something else, you know. New people, old people, I love it. So, zoomed in right here with our wide shot to Mare Crisium. We got Proclus glowing brightly with its wonderful asteroid shape. We got the kind of little letter formation to the left of that. It says hi, or me. Those are like little elevated peaks within Sea of Tranquility. Underneath you got Sea of Fecundity, or Sea of Fertility. We got to the right, we got Mare Marginis, Mare Undarum. Really cool, funky names. These kind of etchings. They look like letterings etched into the surface of the moon. So what do we want to do here? I want to play a few more tunes here, but let me sketch a hexagon or two while y'all are here with me. And let me know what you think. Because we did it on Saturn, and then we did it on Jupiter, and now we're going to do this hexagonal lattice, this inherent structure. Where's my paint program? Alright, so Mare Crisium, very, very clear hexagonal shape. Something crazy about this, right? This is new. This is just never mentioned in contemporary public record about from the media or from NASA or from anyone, really. Now, I got the idea by watching Thunderbolts Project, and then also just looking at it. It's so stupid because it really was. It was one of those things where I was just looking at the moon and I was like, what the hell? I always thought these were really circular. Everybody says they're circular, and that's what all the science says, just circular, perfectly circular, circular, elliptical, circular. It's like, no, like one of the hugest mares, I mean all of them actually now, but at first this was the first one. I was like, man, this is a hexagon. What's going on here? And then you realize like hexagons are formed in nature via electrical sorting along magnetic fields. And that, to me, is just amazing if you kind of apply it to lunar geology and so forth. Yeah, Comet Leonard won't be visible to us, huh? Yeah, for me, I really just like decided to do the planets and the moon this week. I'm gonna try again tomorrow, see if I can get the scope set up where I'm supposed to, but it's really tough given my place right here. So sorry about the comet, but a lot of people are taking some amazing footage, so not too bummed about it. Red Rum is saying, imagine one night we were watching Luna with you and we watched a giant comet smash into the moon. So, like, kablooey moon. No, I don't think the comet would hit the moon. Honestly, I feel like the field would probably break up the comet. Whoa, there we go. So many windows open. So the lunar magnetic field would probably crush anything coming close. So the comet would kind of come this way and maybe rebound and create a discharge like that against the lunar field. Right? And then perhaps it would create some sort of shockwave reverberation across the surface and some electrical interaction. Now, the reason the electrical interaction that we hypothesized created the surface of the moon was much more powerful is due to the fact that the Birkeland filament that it was on was much more active and much higher voltage at the time. So an earlier version of our universe had much more activity than we see today, where the orbits are much further apart and the charge is much less. But it doesn't mean that the charge is not there at all, because like I was mentioning at the top of the show, there are cometary incidences that, I haven't filmed comets, unfortunately. That's one of the things that I haven't done, but there are images of not only comets interacting with the sun, but Jupiter breaking up, creating giant glows that are the size of the sun, naked, visible to the naked eye, naked to the visible eye. And yeah, comets are just absolutely electric, like rocky, dusty surfaces. And they interact with all sorts of, with everything within the sheath of our sun. It just makes way more sense that way to me. Got zoned in there for a moment. So yeah, I wanted to draw on this, and then I got lost in chat. Oh, that's what happened. This got all sketchy. There we go. Undo that. Alright, so we go back to the intrinsic shape. We got the hexagon of Mare Crisium, Sea of Crises. We got Proclus Crater, which in and of itself is kind of a stretched and eroded hexagon. You've got these very bright rays emanating from it at perfect 120-degree angles. There's a reason for that too. You know, this is the structure of it. It almost looks like is it a TIE fighter? And there, right, that's our hexagon. This is our tube. This is our Birkeland filament. I realize I gotta sketch a bit faster here. Dielectric inertial plane, right? This is the shape of an apple, shape of the butterfly, shape of the honeycomb, the shape of the bridge of the eye. This is where our eyes are born along the dielectric inertial plane. We grow our own eyeballs, right? Nobody else grows them for us, and they're filamentarily connected to the source like this. And the bridge of the nose fits right there. Why does it fit there? Because the Birkeland filament continues, and humans are grown along filaments, the same as animals and all structures in the universe. And the mouth itself kind of does this thing, right? In and of itself, it's like a hexagon. And then the jaw is a hexagon. Ears, right? Primitive geometry. Top of the head, kind of a hexagon too. So humans are grown along filaments. This shape is structurally sound throughout the universe. It is the fundamental shape. And it breeds all other you can derive every other shape from it. So let's go simple here for a moment and just draw the hexagons, right? And then you have, what I want to draw was, I got lost there for a second. All right, let's zoom out a little bit and I can show you Sea of Tranquility and Sea of Serenity. Show you how that relates to it.
Oh babe, I'm not sorry. I keep on pulling you back from the edge, but I got nothing to say or defend myself, so I'm sorry. Oh man, I'm not really sorry. I keep on pulling myself back from the edge, but I got nothing real to say for myself, but I'm sorry. Oh babe, I'm not sorry. I keep on pulling you back from the edge, but I got nothing to say or defend for myself, so I'm sorry. Man, I'm not really sorry. Oh, wild whistle into the blackness we bring. Fly your blue heart to cast all the shadows away. Go, wild whistle into the darkness we dream. Fly, young sweetheart, in the host of the shadows vibrate.
Right, that was an old one. Pulling myself back. Take a quick moment here just to continue sketching a few more things, just to tie it all together. And we'll get back to the jams. So what do we got? We got the moon looking amazing tonight. What's the percentage illuminated? 60 something, right? 69. 69.5% illuminated moon. Looking snazzy. So you see, if I try and kind of boost the contrast like I did last night, we lose a little bit near the terminator up at Mare Imbrium. So I'm going to kind of keep it a little bit washed right now so we can go up there and see that region. So realize I was drawing over here at Mare Crisium. Very clear hexagonal formation. You got Proclus right next to it, Proclus, Proclus. And then here we've got this this was really the revelation to me, and it took me a while because it's not immediately apparent, but then once you see it, you can't unsee it, that you have this structure. So this is Sea of Serenity, and this is Sea of Tranquility. Of course you have this kind of diamond shape that is a feature of this whole area. Goes down that way, but you can very clearly see that there are these kind of overlapping hexagonal, pentagonal formations, right? This is Mare Crisium, this is Fecunditatis, fertility, and this is Nectaris, Mare Nectaris. And so you have this chain of connected hexagonal, pentagonal formations. What is formed here? You have this formation, the hypotrochoid. You have another hypotrochoid, or an hourglass shape, or a pinched tube. Another pinched tube right over here. You have chains of craters emanating out that way, kind of curling. And this reminded me of molecular structures. If you look at, I'll pull this up, I have an image, a caffeine molecule, right? You start, not just caffeine, because I'm a fiend, caffeined, but just I've seen these pictures before, right? And this is exactly what it reminded me of. Let me know if y'all are still hanging out in the chat. I feel like I haven't seen a new comment in a solid 5 minutes, but Let me know if this is boring you or if you want me to continue talking about it. But for me, this is fundamentally amazing that you have inherently recursive structures of pentagons against hexagons that form not only molecular bonds, but features on the moon. What else looks like this? Let's look at an apple. Hiya, Ellie, thank you. You're alive. All right, so the apple. Okay, so what do we have? What can we draw on top of the apple? Same sort of thing. All right, you've got the pinched plasma tube. Pinched plasma tube. You have the oscillator, or the heart, or the chakra, or the Z-pinch. Then you have this shape. Butterfly wings, flesh of an apple, side-by-side hexagons and pentagons. Hypotrochoid, hourglass shape in the middle, or pinched tube. Right? The apple stem mirrors exactly where the Birkeland filament entered the apple and left. Fundamental geometry, things grow along filamentary roots. Interconnected, fractally recursive, scalarly recursive root systems. So that's how an apple can inherit information and store it in the seed, in this knot, this plasma toroidal knot, and it oscillates in and creates an apple skin. So the skin, right, at one point was much closer to the pit. Not only that, if I take it one step further, the relationship between the pits or the seeds of an apple and the flesh of the apple is this kind of 90-10 sort of split. And this is what people, I think, refer to as this kind of, this is the salt in the stew, right? A little bit of salt in your food. No salt in your food, it's inedible. Too much salt in your food, it's inedible. The right amount of salt is needed to create a dish or a stew or life or any number of things. You need a little bit kind of that is different in order to experience the whole. And the whole needs something to admire and look at, because without that, it has no motivation. And that's really interesting, you know, I'm not trying to judge anyone through that, but this is that whole 80-20, 90-10 idea, or people think sheeple, or people think I'm just myself and everybody else is that. The relationship between self and other is this ratio that occurs due to the fact that things oscillate within the ether. So the moon now oscillates and creates its conscious plasma layer. We don't see it, right? It's like when you think about the moon ringing like a bell, right? The moon just oscillates. It reverberates ever so slightly, and probably when it was born and grew, it oscillated much faster, resonated much faster. Right now it's slowed down because it's kind of come to a certain point in its life cycle, in its etheric life cycle. So it's pulsating a layer right here into the ether. And the ether is potential conscious energy, and it's pushing down against it. And that interference pattern between ether and moon oscillation creates interference points. These points actually are what I think of as memory. The memories that are toroidal fractal cymatic knots of plasma that store information about the universe. And so Rupert Sheldrake talks about this, Eileen McCusick talks about this. They talk about it in terms of real physical dense matter that actually stores information. So once this is stored in the field, the moon is able to resonate with these points, its memory, and remember what it looks like. So if things are moving at the speed of light, which if you study anything about quantum mechanics or even special relativity, you'll realize that we live in a reality where people think that we move in and out of reality. At points, quantum mechanics says particles are non-existent. And what that really, I think, refers to is the fact that they're missing this, they don't account for the layers around it. So we're oscillating within these layers of memory that allow us and allow every particle, every solar system, every universe to be able to retain its shape by consciously resonating with the projection of the self. This to me makes a lot more sense than things are disconnected. Who knows when the moon, blah, blah. It's all completely ad hoc. 13 billion years ago. Let's go back to seconds near the Big Bang. We're in a Goldilocks zone. You know, no life exists anywhere else, only us. Any number of things. Planets are not conscious. We can't learn anything new from the moon. That's a big part of it. People are so like, oh, whatever, the moon, you know, been there, done that. And I'm like, that's just the craziest thing imaginable to me, that we just have this moon and the science that I'm not a scientist, right? Like, I'm just an amateur astronomer, like, who put together a bunch of YouTube ideas. And then I looked at the moon for a long time. I mean, I'm oversimplifying it, but to that, you know, that's the extent of it, right? I looked at every video, checked out every possible idea, and then by the process of deduction, came down to the idea that, wow, there's a huge amount of scientists already, like Wal Thornhill and Donald Scott and Eileen McCusick and Rupert Sheldrake and Pierre-Marie Robitaille and Halton Arp and Emmanuel Velikovsky and on, who already have most of this universe stuff figured out, all the big questions, how space works, how consciousness might work, how health works. And we're sitting here with a cosmology that's 90% ad hoc and like jargon. Mostly it's jargon and, you know, poetic platitudes about the largeness of the universe and how humans suck and can never understand the self. But this is understanding the self. Why is it impossible to understand that while we're observing this process that I'm explaining here? So we're resonating. So the seeds, right, are like a chakra. Let me pull up another image here. If y'all are good with me, keep going. The moon is clear and nice, and you can really see this, what I'm talking about. Like, I think it's fundamentally profound that you can see Sea of Serenity, Sea of Tranquility connected this way, and yet I think I've never been able to find a single like actual moon discussion or official moon like presentation at NEAF or Royal Society, or just literally nobody talks about it. Nobody, like not one person. I'm just it's it's so ridiculous. I'm chuckling almost because like that's, I don't know, that's just nervous laughter because I don't know what to say. Honestly, like it pisses me off to some degree, and then I try and regulate my emotions by laughing and figuring that it's all part of the game. So the way I'll interpret it here, let's play a little psychology. So how do we deal with how do you realize that death is necessary? All right, so death intrinsically here via, I mean, let me rephrase that. How do we use the electric universe principles to understand birth and death? All right, so that's a simpler way to put it. And I think what happens is along filamentary Birkeland filaments that already exist, oscillations occur, or sorry, knots occur, Z-pinches occur, like stars are born, chakras are born, planets are born, galaxies are born, quasars are born, in the same fashion as we're seeing the seeds of an apple growing outwards and creating these layers and ultimately flesh and skin. But then what happens when an apple ripens? There's the decline, the Kali Yuga, so to speak, or the age of darkness. And then there's the golden age when it ripens. And then there's this kind of, the hero's journey follows the same trajectory if you kind of map it to this. So point is, at some point, the give and take of the universe necessitates death. So therefore, you could look at it in terms of karma, as what you do, and the payment for life is death. And that is kind of simplifying it, but for me, if you principally approach it that way, there are a lot of things you can deduce from thinking about it that way by coming to some sort of peace with the fact that there is an ebb and flow to reality. And that is beautiful because reality and nature is beautiful, and we're nature, right? So the first principle is that we are nature. We're not anti-nature, apart ex-nature, and we're not of nothing, we are of something. And because the universe is something already. And that makes more sense because then you're empowered. And when you're empowered, you have confidence and you can overcome fear. And we fear death mostly. And so if there's a way to believe that we are empowered and courageous in this universe and necessary, then we have the power to face death. The other idea here is that the way to prove the existence of the self-actualizing God is that right now, each and every one of us is growing limbs and hair and eyeballs and formulating words, performing magic, so to speak, magnetism magic, by interacting, talking, thinking, creating these fractal knots in reality, stuff that we don't see, but we are the magicians already. And finally, once you realize that you are creating eyeballs, and since you were in the womb, you were creating a body, the structure of lungs, and the structure of a brain. Therefore, you already have godlike powers before you even understand how to describe these powers or to yearn for these powers. So we are already the preconceived self-actualizing God as soon as we're instantiated as a plasma knot oscillator. The baby's heart is the oscillator, the original, the OG Genesis oscillator, and that's ultimately what becomes the most outer skin layer of your reality. Like right now, your birth is 30 feet away from you. This is just me talking. And yeah, so we are the self-actualizing God that can create eyeballs and limbs, and yet we can also kill ourselves, right? We can also end lives, and this is necessitative in the circuitry and the holism of the system. Anyway, I tried to get that out clearly. Let me know what you think. I got people in the chat want to say what's up. Let me hide these drawings for a moment. Starting from the bottom, says Sarah Melito, have you heard? Let me say hi first. Sarah and Kimmy, great to see you. Let me know how the concert was. Great that you made it tonight. Cognition design, is there some kind of energy connection with the 3 C's on the moon and the fact that they always kind of face the Earth? I would say, so I'll tell you very specifically. So there are references to the moon interacting with Mars in, I want to say, Iliad, or in some ancient writing, which I should confirm. There is a reference to the moon exchanging a wispy kind of plasma beam with Mars. So I wonder if the surface of the moon was kind of carved more by Mars than potentially being captured by Earth. But maybe the surface of the moon faces Earth and is tidally locked to us via capture, and capture would have the moon be quite close to Earth, right? So right now the moon is supposed to be moving away from Earth at a couple of inches per year. But you imagine if you roll back 100, 200, a million years, 100, 200,000 or a million years, and the moon must have been a lot closer, and therefore, and also a lot more electrically and magnetically active. That's contemporary science. So I would imagine that extended periods of electrical arcing between Earth and the moon could definitely have formed these shapes, because they are reminiscent of what we find on Earth. And the moon is facing us. There is this particular setup. So I think I could lean either way, because I don't know. Ancient writings are misinterpreted. Who knows if that's how it really happened. So it's hard to say with speculation. But the rational explanation is that there is a side that faces us. These shapes look electric, like they were carved electrically. So does Earth. And therefore, a possible theory is that, yes, it was because of Earth capturing the moon that these regions were created and almost look like kind of our oceans and shores, just a smaller version, cosmically, fractally. Silent Murmur, I see you in there. What's happening? Everything stays. Earth recycles matter. Every unit in this entire universe, every oscillator, let's say, I think recycles matter. In, out, all around. We are tubes, right? Humans are tubes with teeth at the end, as Alan Watts said once. Let's see. Rainbows and butterflies, I'm here listening, chasing my youngest with a hairbrush. Kid is forming lots again. Silent Murmur says, we are all miniature coagulated Kanaga plasma life forms. I agree, like humans, here I was going to pull up this other image of funnels. So this is one of my faves. I stole it from somewhere, but this is for learningness. But look at this. This is exactly what's going on. You have these toroidal fields, toroidal Birkeland filaments entering and leaving every human chakra. And then when you lay down and sleep, these are facing upwards, right? And they're interacting with different layers of surrounding conscious plasma. And humans are grown along these filaments. When you're a baby, you're born at that very center, and all the, we extend outwards along the filament, slowing down towards a golden age, midlife, and then we start the decline. So oscillations. It's very beautiful to imagine it in terms of we are completely one with the universe, life and death cycle, but also because we manifest at all, we have the power to create limbs and eyes and brains. Like no one else is doing that. We are doing that. You could argue. People will argue with me and tell me that it's an extracted universal force, something outside. But I think it's us. I mean, I think the more reasonable conclusion is that we actually grow our own body. And we likely bring ourselves into existence and out of existence. Yet, the biggest game we ever played was to convince ourselves that that's not what we're doing. Because if I go into the kind of if I can borrow from Alan Watts, this idea that somehow if you were a god, you'd want to dream the deepest dream you could ever dream. And at some point, you'd want the dream to be so real that even you were fooled by it. And that's how you ended up here, Like, I can barely get through that without almost choking up because it's so revelatory. It's one of those things that profoundly breaks your mind, because then you realize, like, yeah, it's much more logical that you actually created all of this, or that I created it, or you created it, we all created it to observe it. And we already are what we want to be. But because of existence and this kind of ratio of 90-10, we think 10% that we're like, okay, I think we're powerful, I think I'm a god. And then 90% of the time we're like, no, that's be too arrogant. I can't say that about myself because society will view me a certain way. And because of this ratio, you have this kind of reality. Consciousness is self-realization and balance between self and other. And other, in this instance, being, the air around us, people around us, anything besides the central oscillator core. All right, taking a little break here. Taking a little break. I'm glad that it cleared up so we can watch the moon. Moon's ever so high up, so it's a little bit blurry, and I feel like we'll go a little bit longer and try and get a slightly clearer shot. But you saw the drawings. Let me know if you have any thoughts about that. And when I get back, I'm going to do some zoomed-in zoomed-in shots up top with Archimedes and Mare Imbrium and Plato, etc., etc. Dream fields coming through.
Sleepless real, and how you think you see this silhouette redeemed until the moon is all of me. We raced against the birds and let time drift over me. And so you know it's real. I thought you called it being a final rest inside this sleep.
Alright, that was an old instrumental that popped up. Pretty fun listening to these old jams that I forget that I have. Thanks for the kind words about the jank tunes, the dank tunes. Some of them are not too jank. Alright, so got in here a little bit. Still focal reducer, but removed the extender tube. Wanted to zoom in on the Apennine mountain range, and it's looking really beautiful. Definitely moon's kind of getting some turbulence because of where it is in the sky. It's high up there against the cold air. But still gorgeous enough to get a zoomed in shot here. So let me reset my sketch program, even though that was a pretty good sketch. You can always do it. You can always overlay the same exact drawing that I did every time, so I never really need to save it. Don't save. In a way, drawing these shapes on top of reality is like a totem. You can always check whether you're still in this reality by layering the hypertrochoid and the torus. All right. So yeah, looking mighty nice. It's that kind of really wicked Halloween smile. So just get my program together, and so I can see y'all. Probably need to get a third monitor, but just trying to run the paint program and see what I'm doing and see what everybody's writing is quite a thing on two screens. Okay, let's sketch. Sketch. So the Apennine mountain range, Apennine, coming across like this beautiful kind of gateway into Mare Imbrium from Sea of Serenity. You could imagine if you're on horseback, lunar horses coming through this giant gateway between two like 5,000 to 10,000 foot mountain ranges, something out of Lord of the Rings, like the Gates of Mordor. The Gates of Mordor. Then over here you got Eratosthenes. Pretty easy to see the pentagonal, right? Pentagonal shape. And you get over here. This is, I forgot this one. Is this Sea of Lacus Mortis? Let me double check on my atlas. Mare Vaporum and Sinus Astrum and Sinus Medi. Right, so Mare Vaporum is under that, Sinus Astrum is under that. Right? Sorry. Yeah, Sinus Aestum. Aestuum. It's a cool name. Yeah, so Sinus Aestum. And then you have Archimedes. Very flat-floored crater with raised edges and this really cool extended, almost cometary-like trail. Forked trails, raised ridges that, to me, I feel like electricity moving across the surface, pulling in matter and creating these elevated surfaces on flat surfaces. Same thing here, you know, matter being pulled along the electrical arc, moving across the surface, creating this type of feature. What else do we have? We have Autolycus. Autolevolycus. Alright, dad jokes all night here. Sorry, where's my damn atlas? Get back. So which one is which? Aristillus and Autolycus. So Aristillus right here. And Autolycus. And then Cassini. And then you're coming into these cool striations into Mare Imbrium. Mare Imbrium. Yeah, that's what we're looking at. So I'm going to try and get us even closer, but that's the setup. Let's jam a little bit. This is the race to space.
Give you love and I come in peace. Feel your pain cause it's part of me. I know you really think we need buddies, but I'm amazed by the shapes of your lips. Hear your name but we come in peace. It's insane that you're part of me. Never lifts from the iron wrists. It's as if everybody is the same, buddy. Feel insane and I yearn for relief. Maybe someday there's some in me. I am made of the will of somebody. Someday, buddy, we'll get the slip. Here in space now we come in peace. Some of the things that you cannot believe. Ready to trip on the drift. We can live to the new, cause I love to give you. We are the space race, we are the moonwalk, we are the franchise, we are the sequel, they are the ether. How are we still here? On your place along the space race. Sitting at the red light corner on a beach outside of here, across the street from where we grew up after bombing raids. And somehow we lived, somehow we died, somehow we came back from the city cries. We tried through civilized genocide. Kind of started with your armies coming down from the western forces. Got no love but you harm me. We've been paid for your western bosses. But when you scream out and you sing loud, everybody wanna tear you down. Come on, come on, come on, step to it. I got nothing but love to share with you. We are the space race, we are the moonlight, we are the franchise, we are the sequel, we are the ether. How are we still here? We find a place along the space race.
Quick little check-in before the next few tunes. Saying what's up to Rockstar and Dr. Ayad, what's going on? And Dave Sterniolo, what's happening? And everybody joining, hanging out. Appreciate all the kind comments, everybody. So yeah, I adjusted the settings here so we can see a lot of amazing striations in these areas. At the top right, that is Eratosthenes crater. And I'm going to get in real deep now with the... I'll get rid of the focal reducer and we can zoom in seriously on Eratosthenes and those kind of like Lichtenberg type figures underneath it and around it. What was it? Sinus Astum. And then to the bottom right corner of your screen, that's Mare Vaporum, Sea of Vapors. Top right, Mare Imbrium and all its little sinuous rills. Along the Terminator line, we can see so many different features. That kind of cool area right in the middle that looks like a... It almost looks like an ant head. You know what I'm talking about? Let me sketch here. Sketch a little ant head, some moon pareidolia. Anyone who thinks pareidolia is not real... I will show you, or actually I've already shown you many times why pareidolia is what it is. And it's because humans and geology are grown along the same field lines. These side-by-side symmetrical hexagons and dielectric inertial plane and Birkeland filaments, the same way I was drawing the two hexagons side-by-side as the eye bridge. That's why we have pareidolia in the surface of the moon, and you see faces, because the faces are the same, are formed along the same type of Birkeland filaments. So, pulling up the paint program. I realize I need to start that one over. Give me a sec. I don't have infinite undos, are you kidding me? Right, so Eratosthenes, Apennine Mountain Range, Imbrium, what is it? Sinus Astum, Mare Vaporum, right? In this region that looks like an ant head. These are the little mandibles and the eyes. I don't know, it's kind of like an ant. I was all hyped on drawing an ant, but it's slightly out of focus, ant. But more so than anything, it's just that you have these nested hexagons everywhere. But let's follow these trace lines for a moment. So what do we got? Sinus Astum is very clearly over here, a pentagon. Then you have these kind of... No, I didn't mean to do that, did I? Damn. Did not mean to do that. That's so weird. Did I just zoom out? I don't know what just happened. Let me erase all this stuff. It was an awesome ant. Thank you, Kimmy. You get the idea. I feel like I moved this by accident. I promise tomorrow I'm going to get a non-squeaky chair. I've had enough. I have had enough with this squeaky chair. Okay, reset on that. Okay, Eratosthenes again. Sinus Astum. And you have, this is where you'd have the hypotrochoid, you'd have the Birkeland filament, you'd have another Birkeland filament going across here and creating this kind of area. So you'd have side-by-side Mare Imbrium, and then this whole region that we're not seeing kind of extends that way. So there's a much larger, it's just nested hexagons. We're seeing this hexagon because it's actually tilted away from us like that. And this one is actually tilted forward towards us more. So everything is kind of a 3D imprint on a 2D surface to some degree. Almost like tattoos. but it is getting nice and sharp, so space ants are delicious. Alright, I think I actually might go get a different chair because it's actually, you can't hear the squeaking chair. I can't tell you, it's driving me absolutely crazy. Every 2 seconds, it's like, Here, do you hear this? There it is. Anyway, it's stupid, but it's driving me crazy. Let me put some songs and go change my chair. I don't know why I haven't done it already.
Your mind is in illusion. Please don't shake my little rocket boat. Days go by, but I still roll. All we need are friends in the rain. Coming around again, coming around again. Don't need no chains. Yeah. Jurassic trees built enough to please the tourists. Oh, no one knew, wishing we could live in caverns. Carved a name upon a tree, wait for you at the edge of the forest. 100 summers just to get to know you. I'll shine my catechies to show you find me back again. If the time will come again, never know, I never know. And that's why I keep saying, please don't shake my little rocking boat. Don't shake my day to day, but I still go. Need friends in the rain. Coming around again, coming around again. Don't we know? I don't know what you do to me, oh baby, Waiting for you at the edge of time. Sing with you at the edge of line. It's with you at the edge of time. Watch the proof as a simplified magic. As a proof with a little touch. It's with you with the truth of magic. I can do what I said on my time. Waiting for you at the edge of the line. Waiting for you at the end of time. Oh, deep down in the slumber. Sleep now in the jungle. Sleep now is hunger. So what you feel?
Alright, let me hop in here, talk about some of this moon stuff. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Connie, you had an interesting suggestion, which I'll just say is a great suggestion, but I've definitely done some of that. What planet do you have in specific in mind to compare to, you know, the moon or Jupiter, Saturn? So I've been able to look at, you know, all the NASA stuff, all the ESA stuff. When I say all of it, I mean going to the archives and kind of clicking through all the different images of each mission, of going to Flickr, checking out. At one point, I actually went through the entire like Apollo collections, like 10,000 images. I just spent a few days like clicking through the entire Flickr collection, just kind of absorbing all of that. And it's hard to tell what to look for, you know what I mean? I think especially because what I think about the moon is that electricity forms everything, and everything is carved like the surface of the moon. So it's not necessarily, it no longer is specific to any particular planet or person. It's just that overall, like here's a great example, Rupus Recta, or Huygens Sword. And I feel like I'm remembering now that yesterday I called a different region Rupus Recta, and it wasn't that. We were looking at, what was it, like it was like Maris Marginis? No, that's not what it is. It's like something Hyginus. It's a different type of feature. It was the long sinuous rill with the little rock in the middle. This, though, is actually Rupus Recta. Sorry for getting it wrong yesterday, but yeah, this is Huygens Sword. You can see the hilt. You see this interesting feature that's like this sharp line in the regolith. And you wonder, like, is this some sort of fold in the land where, you know, the right side kind of pushed over and created these kind of overlapping continental, like, tectonic plate movements? Or was this an electric arc moving across the surface, creating this kind of ridge? Because as the point of the arc moving across the surface is pulling surface matter upwards towards it and kind of creating a pinch, almost like if you were melting a plastic bag together. So yeah, back to Connie's question about comparing planets. So I've compared the surface of the moon, like I've tried my best over the years to collect as much moon footage, especially very old moon footage. I've done many deep dives, like 20, 30 plus, like oldest moon picture, oldest moon video, footage of the moon before 1900, and on, those types of search terms. So I feel very thorough about like comparisons of the moon. It's pretty hard to tell what's different or what's changed. It just feels like the past 100 years really is the majority of what we know about the moon. Prior to that, there were a few pictures taken in the 1800s, 1900s, and not even really. I mean, really, it was more like the 1900s. The 1800s. Late 1800s was the first image. It was the Guerrero print. I want to say like 1890 something, and onwards from that, it's very tough to find any type of actual moon photos up until around 1940, 1950, and then you start getting images. I've actually looked up like home footage, home videos of the moon, like 1920, 1930. It's really not that much, and it's actually, I find it kind of surprising, ultimately, that there isn't that much moon footage out there. That's not to say that there isn't a lot. But then what I've also looked at is Neptune, Uranus, Venus, Mars, all those types of pictures. And that's why I really like I mentioned Damian Peach, but Damian Peach actually has taken amateur astronomy photos of Saturn, Mars, Jupiter, all the planets really as best you can with really good gear for 20 plus years, and has them all on his website. So if you check Damian Peach Jupiter, you'll see these kind of incredible phases, and Saturn tilted the other way, and really up close shots of Jupiter. I think that's kind of the image level that I aspire to get. But to me, that's the best reference we really have. So cheers, Kimmy. Dave Sterniolo, could be dust blown over a ridge from an impact. But I don't know about this feature you're talking about. I mean, I feel like there's such definition to all these shapes, these very hard, sharp carved canals and sinuous rills. We'll look at some more over the coming days when Aristarchus is viewable. And it's just like a knife through butter. And when you think about that, it's hard to imagine years and years of erosion or tectonic movement in an isolated region, or remnants not being at least a little bit aberrant in terms of their shape and not these very sharp lines. Something like this would be persistent arcing, but it would move across the surface fairly quickly if we imagine, days, weeks, maybe hours. And then that would make, to me, makes a lot more logical sense than really any other theory. But if you actually look up Huygens Sword or Rupus Recta and type in something like, what is contemporary understanding of Rupus Recta or Huygens Sword, or lectures on Huygens Sword, or NASA articles on Huygens Sword, you'll realize there's very little information about the assessment of what these features are, at least what I've found. So unless I'm missing something and you go to college lectures and they tell you exactly what this feature is and how it was formed, there's this kind of presupposed situation where we think the answer is already out there, oh, there's, it's referred to. But if you actually look up why is this feature what it is, there's very little actual data out there, or articles or discussions about Huygens Sword. Not just Huygens Sword, right? Aristarchus, the Aristarchus Plateau, Schroeder's Valley, Tycho, and the long parallel rays coming out of Tycho, Clavius and the chain of craters, the shape of Sinus Iridum, the shape of Tranquility and Serenity, and Chrysium, the way I've shown it with the side-by-side hexagons. These are never, things that don't exist in terms of if you look up that research. No one's either asked the question, and I don't think NASA has ever brought up these facts in writing. So it's really strange, actually, to live on a planet with so many people and so many scientists and all this history. But and this is not my ego talking. It's actually shocking to me. I'm more baffled by this than scientists are baffled by the moon geology. Recta. It's not a bad name. Not a bad word. Yeah, so I don't know, Dave. Could be dust blown over a ridge. It could be. There's never oh, this is it exactly. For me, just thinking about it in terms of carving with electricity, and then creating blisters and bubbles. These are the shapes that we see all the time. And you can actually recreate this at home in your sink with coffee, or a pour over coffee. You can do this exact shape and it'll pop out like that. The bubble will pop and it'll be this little hexagonal shape because of the boundary layers, because of essentially the impermeability of certain points around this bubble. It'll create sides. will create boundary layers and then form into dodecahedrons, hexagons, pentagons, diamonds. Right now, if you look up why is geology diamond shaped, or why are there hexagons in geometry, and you look up PBS or any of the the real so-called real mainstream science channels, they don't actually explain why the shape is the way it is. They just tell you that the shape is what it is, and they do like an hour documentary saying, look, isn't it interesting that this shape is the way it is? And people are like, ooh. And they're like, it's really amazing. Let's get this other scientist to tell you how interesting it is that this thing is a hexagon. And the scientist is like, well, over millions of years, we've noticed that things are hexagons. Isn't it amazing? And the reporter's like, yeah, it's really great. Hexagons are awesome. They never actually get around to telling you like why this shape actually occurs in nature, why interlocking hexagons are something, a bee, that we consider like unintellectual. People look down on animals and insects like they're not conscious, but let's say bees are conscious. They know how to build interlocking hexagonal structures that are even, and like a program almost, like you do on a computer. And they just do it. And people look at them and like, oh yeah, no big deal. Honeycomb. It just happens. But I definitely think that bubble theorists, people who don't even think about plasma or electric universe, who study bubbles, probably understand where these shapes come from. But if you're talking about astronomy, it's almost never mentioned. It's so rarely mentioned. Let's see. Dr. Ayad says, what's your take about astronomy? I mean, it's also two ways, we affecting it, vice versa. The universe is highly interactive. Yeah, I mean, I think part of the idea of oscillators referencing each other. So there is the soup of the universe, everything, space, and space contains all that there is. Yes, look, so ultimately, even if whatever theory you want to believe in, or whatever science we actually end up working with, or whatever physics end up being, there is this fundamental thing that's going on. There's consciousness, or potential kinetic etheric energy everywhere. And then within it, there are nodes, roots, and oscillations from these. And from those oscillations, we get these further complex shapes. And then in tandem, these shapes breed and create even more shapes. Okay, but you still have to presuppose that there's an etheric conscious plasma and that things oscillate, right? So I do take things like that into consideration, where like we can't really tell why that actually exists, why the universe exists at all. But what I do here, I think, what I'm trying to do actually is just say, let's not, there's a middle ground between like, it's so big we can never understand it, to here's a way to, some rational and satisfying way to appreciate it that doesn't feel so hollow and sales-like and propagandist and divisive and put down. We live in a put down science now. Look at all the channels that debunk this and they debunk that instead of actually doing science. They're like, let me use 100-year-old science to tell you how you're wrong. I don't think that's scientific. I don't think it's kind, and I don't think it spurs debate. It just breeds anger and mistrust. So for me, there's a bridge between like, yes, there's an underlying conscious field that we have to accept, and then there's an underlying oscillation that we have to accept. Okay, those are two precepts that are tolerable, that we can hold in an imaginary kind of floating etheric plasma bubble for a second. But then if we understand how that exists in relation to itself, then I think we can understand the self and the other, and we can understand space, and we can understand God. I don't think it's impossible to hold both states at once. And then finally, what I said earlier about the fact that right now you could say that if I asked you, tell me in the chat, so if I asked you, what's happened, Patrick McNellis? evening. Let's say I asked you who made your body? Who made your limbs, or your eyeballs, or your hair, or your lungs, or put it all together? Like, who allowed your eyeballs to work? Who or what or whom or who? Like, if you think about it right now, you are doing it. You are growing your hair and running the blood and interacting with your etheric plasma, and you've grown your whole skeleton without even understanding how to articulate it. But you can't step away from the fact that you did that. The self actually has the power to create life. That's really what I'm saying. And if the self has the power to create life, then there's nothing to fear from the balance between knowing and not knowing. So if you don't know the face of the creator, or the name of the creator, or the shape of the creator, you just look in the mirror and you see that, because we are a recursive fractal version of the ultimate creator, because we create equally to the larger whole and the smaller whole. I mean, that's why when you look at these like electron microscope shots, you're like, damn, that looks like space, right? And then you look at space and it looks like an electron microscope. In both directions, what kind of comes up to play is the dream that Alan Watts talks about, where if you are the Godhead, you want to create a dream that even you think is real, a performance that draws you in and sells you on life. So we create this reality as a God to fool ourselves into having an exciting experience. Otherwise, if you're that powerful, you get bored ultimately. So anyway, let me tie this back in real quick to some geometry, because I got a couple of craters pulled up. I want to say that I know what they're called off the top of my head, but I don't. I will find the names ultimately, but more so, I want to just show you. I don't even have to draw it, but you can see that it's a pentagon next to a hexagon. Same relational pattern as we have with molecules. The two center craterlets are along the dielectric inertial plane. You got in the middle, you got the apple core, right? You got the hypotrochoid. Essentially, geology is an imprint of the electrical signature around the planet. The interrelational qualities of these give us this unique perspective to look at the surface of the moon and see space in the surface, see the form of space, the geometry of space. So tell me if you see this, the side-by-side formation. Flat-floored craters, craters on the rims of larger craters. No circular craters on the moon. Everything has corners. Everything has corners because things are originally at the very point of inception spherical or circular, and then they ultimately meet other circles or spheres, and then they create boundary layers by cell packing or bubble packing. You can recreate this at home with very simple instruments like pouring over coffee or creating bubbles in the sink, and you'll see that the ether is not empty. We just don't see all these bubbles in between each other. But that's how information, light, sound, senses are trap little ideas, little toroidal knots that are packets of information that contain everything we know. Thunderbolts Project just did a video that kind of references the Michael Armstrong video where they show all these points around the human body. But even in that video, he doesn't take a second to kind of explain that they're all connected by various sized bubbles. And the bubbles inside them have the apple core shape, the hypotrochoid, the pinched tube, the torus, and the hourglass. This is like having X-ray vision to the cosmos and to life itself, is understanding the inherent structure. Therefore, you realize that you are also the inherent structure of the universe, and that gives you power to understand the self. So this is Huygens that I was talking, that I made a mistake yesterday and called Rupus recta. This is a sinuous rill. Like, this is the same as us, right? It's fat, skinny, fat, skinny, fat, skinny. stretched across the surface like a little tube, like a worm. Did anybody else join us? I see a lot of typing in there, but bubbles, bubbles. Well, good to see everybody in the chat. Let me know what you think. I'm going to keep doing a lunar zoom here and playing the tunes. Tied it all up together, started on Saturn. We did this shape, this apple core, this idea, and then moved on to Jupiter, did the same exact thing. Moved on to the moon. In all different sizes and scales of the moon, you see this side-by-side hexagon, pentagon, hexagon, hexagon, eroded kind of dodecahedron, but Platonic geometry everywhere. Stuff that could only happen if you have this kind of bubbling and boiling in very specific, electrical circuitry. So snaking Lichtenberg patterns. We see the imprint of the remnants of the birth of the moon on the surface, no doubt. And it's very strange that it's never talked about seriously. All right, let's get some tunage up in here. Electric Blood, here we go.
I've been waiting on the street for days. Don't treat me like a fool. I've been sleeping on the streets for days. Don't treat me so cruel. I've been waiting on the porch for days. Don't treat me like you're cool. I've been waiting on the sea for years. I've been waiting for the secret all along. And you know what brings it? Don't you know what soul can sing? Singing about this dream so long for you. I've been dreaming about the song. So long for you. I've been singing about the song. So long for you. I've been dreaming about the one with you. I've been singing about this dream. So long for you. Till I see the color of your eyes reflected in the picture I made for you. All along. And you know what brings it. And you know what soul can sing. And you know what brings it. And you know what soul can. We gotta go. Oh, it's so what brings it out. Remind yourself apparitions that we bleed through. Every fear, your open wide soul modulation. You just come feel this ride so high, your love I'm craving. But I can't see it till you.
Quick interlude here, just I don't know why the opacity is not working on this image, but you can see it almost immediately that this is the same reason a butterfly is formed along a Birkeland filament. I don't know why my paint program is not showing. Oh, there we are. My cursor. Anyway, Birkeland filament. The trace of the butterfly, fat, skinny, fat, skinny, fat, skinny. Look at your finger. Fat, skinny, fat, skinny. Your arm, fat, skinny, head, neck, chest, fat, skinny, fat, skinny. We're like, you know, like nodes along a filament all throughout. So you got this twisting coaxial filament. You got counter rotation. You got wings that outline the fields. Right? And similarly, on the moon, you have geometry that outlines the fields. Now granted, this is very messy, but this is the same reason makes more sense to me than no reason at all, right? Nobody talks about Sea of Serenity as Sea of Tranquility. This is Tranquility, Serenity, Mare Crisium under here. But nobody talks about these at all anyway. But just to talk about them in terms of the fact that they are a natural form that occurs throughout the universe because of this fundamental geometry. This is the important part. I will shut up now. And yeah, we can look at an apple again. You can see the apple core, the hypotrochoid. You see the honeycomb, same sort of thing. You see the funnels. around the human body. So we're like fat, skinny, fat, skinny, fat, skinny. And the toroidal fields are the same sort of thing, fat, skinny, because of the twist and also the expansion and contraction. All right.
Cost of life delivers, oh it will, so we can survive. Oh yeah. And now we cross the river. Point me spaceman, receiver of love, believer of something. The music plays in, get higher than space kid, receiving your love, deceiving nothing. The music plays in, get higher than spaceman, receiving your love, believing something. The music plays in, get higher than space kid, receiving your love, deceiving nothing. The music plays in, receiving your love.
every day. All right. So just want to pause for a second, talk about Valles Alpes over here, the Alpine Valley in the Alpine mountain range near Mare Frigoris and Mare Imbrium to the left. And this is a particular feature that is actually referenced on the Thunderbolts Project, and I'm glad they do talk about it. This is like a 300-kilometer gash through a mountain range that kind of also has a nested 8-kilometer across gash that mirrors it running down to the center that you can't really see here. But this is a really excellent phase to see this feature. And also it looks kind of, you know, at some points it looks like it's lower ground, like it's carved into the surface, and at some points your eye tricks you and it kind of looks like it's raised from the surface. Hard to tell kind of which is which, but apparently it is carved into, so that's what you're looking for. It is lower than the sides. So you imagine, right, like, how is something like this formed? Again, what I said earlier, like, first of all, it's never talked about in contemporary moon discussions or news articles or anything about the moon. But let's imagine you have this kind of feature cut through what is already pre-existing lunar material, right? So how could that happen? You can see this kind of node right over here. So one way to explain it is what they talk about with volcanic lava tubes, right? So lava or magma kind of moved down and dripped all the way and left this remnant. And so these could be hollowed out tubes. However, in the electric universe paradigm, or if there are these electric arcs that go across planetary surfaces, this is something that could occur after this region was kind of elevated due to electric scarification already. You have all this region right here that either was the original lunar surface, right, and then these mares were actually excavated or flattened out, or the lunar surface was removed from these flattened regions, or these regions were areas where there was high electric discharge and matter kind of formed and pulled upwards towards these high electrical voltage points. And once that was formed, then you had this Valles Alpes feature. And this is something that, like, it may seem very primitive the way I'm explaining it here, but I'm just scribbling lines across the screen over and over. I see me, but I'm just highlighting it because, look, to me, it seems like this mountain region was formed, and then an electric arc potentially started over here, kind of got real hot, started moving across the surface, and left. Or vice versa, started here and moved this way, and then left. That's how you can get a carved surface on a planet. I don't see meteorites, asteroids, and years of erosion creating forms like this. I mean, I know that's very pedestrian, but that's the idea. Dr. Ayad says, be lean, not mean. All my brain cells still dispersed. That, what? Yo, Yorate, what's happening? Good to see you. Welcome. Hi. Dr. Ayad, I have no idea what you're talking about. Let's see. You digging the new tunes? Yeah, well, some of them are new, but more so they're ones I haven't played in the last few nights. But some are new, actually. So yeah, this whole region is incredible. Then you have Plato Crater over here with the broken wall in the bottom right corner, which is pretty special in and of itself. Like, how did that happen? How did this crazy chunk fall out? It's like a perfect rectangle, right? And then here, you'd be fooled to think that this was elliptical. But right, if you look closer, right over here, it's sharp. It's sharp. And it goes down. And this kind of gets messy because what happens is it's kind of expanding this way as a blister or a bubble. And then it reaches this region, and the region around it has little bubbles, and these push against it. So there is aberration in the form. I don't want to say that like everything is a perfect hexagon, but more often than not you can find a hexagonal edge. Also you can find the symmetrical, which is right there, right there, right there. And what's crazy is you see it, it's almost hidden in Mare Imbrium. But that's the hypotrochoid dielectric inertial field. Butterfly, bridge of the eye, human field, human biofield, consciousness, caret letters, cultures, apple core. You name it, it's there. Patrick McNellis is like, that's sus. What part of it? The broken wall? The broken wall is definitely sus. Okay, tunage for the moonage. It's always fun to try and find the right song for the right moment. Perhaps it's this one. No, maybe it's not that one. There's so many other parts of the moon. I'm going to tour more south and kind of switch the view a little bit, but it's really wonderful. We finally got some clear skies here. I don't know, maybe I've never played this before.
about it. And if you leave it on the table, you know they'll tell you there's no way to go. But if we could, what else can I do? I leave the light on for you. What else can I do? I pour my heart out for you. What else can I do? I let the light on for you. What else can I do? From the heart, I know, no lie. I've been thinking about you all night. Why? No why. I've been waiting for your white light, no why. Oh, I've been thinking that you should be mine. So call me up. Je t'attends mon amour incestuel, assis dans même que la même semaine, agitant la éternelle, avec en son billet. Je suis la même, ton avant l'année chaque jour. Je t'attends mon amour avec les mecs sans agrévé. Et c'est mon âme magnétique, c'est l'amour magnétique, c'est mon amour magnifique.
Alright, y'all. I think it's time for me to call it a night. I know we still got a lot of moon. I got a lot to talk about, but it's been 3 hours and the crick in my neck it is telling me to call it a night. So I appreciate you all so much. Thanks for hanging out every single time. Everybody's so kind and chill and smart, and I appreciate that. So tonight was a good one. Talked about a lot of topics, but go back through if you missed it, or next time I'll talk about the same sort of thing. We'll draw these butterflies and apple cores and conscious bubbles. Definitely, explore for yourself if this is what you are interested in, because there's a lot to discover beyond my channel. I've linked to a lot of them in the description, and also check out some of my playlists. Shout outs to Halton ARP. He doesn't get enough love. Whoop, whoop. Thanks so much, everybody. Let's, I know Wrong Number from Space was requested. Let me see if I can take us out on that one, or whether I hit something else that I find, because I feel like I played Wrong Number earlier. My man Pat might play something different. How about Flip It for the Edge? I haven't played that in a while. It's a cool closer, and we'll let the moon drift. Next time, definitely play you Wrong Number. How about that? Thanks, everybody. Stay wise, stay strong, stay brave, and leave me a comment about what you want to talk about. I know somebody left me a comment and I responded. I wasn't sure what you were talking about with the magnifier, but definitely down to check that out. I'll catch you all really soon, everyone. Have a great start to your week. Captain signing out. for the world.